All right, cool. Thanks for your patience. We were waiting on some technical things to get sorted out. Thank you, Heidi, for getting those sorted out. You're amazing. Yeah, man. Cool. Glad that you have stuck around to hear some of this update. We are recording this, so if you're watching the recording, thanks for checking in on this process. It's been really fun. As we start this meeting today, I wanted to remind us that this conversation about what happens on our land is a conversation that goes back at minimum 15 years, and that everything you're about to hear stands on the shoulders of people who have gone in front of this church for over a decade now, banging a drum saying, what could we do with dirt to worship God? And it's really cool to be able to stand in that kind of a legacy. That story began because we had asked Broomfield County, what's the biggest need in the area if we have a bunch of land? And they, without hesitation, said affordable housing. And so years ago, a conversation began with Habitat for Humanity. And for those of you that have called Discovery home for a while now, you remember this project. It was the summer of 2022. We were fairly far along in that process with Habitat for Humanity. They had sunk a bunch of their own finances into the project, just getting things blueprinted, platted, all these words that I've learned in the last few years. And they had to step away from the project. And at that point, they had taken on so much financial risk. It was just a punch in the gut. But in that time, we kind of realized, okay, we're back to the drawing board. What are we going to do with our land? Do we want it all for the church? It seems like we've been telling a story that's really important to the heartbeat of this church community, affordable housing. Called Broomfield County again and said, hey, just in case something's changed in the last few years, what's the biggest need in the community if we've got land? And without hesitation, affordable housing. So we thought at the time it was a good step to consider a whole, fresh, new stab at this whole thing. We don't need 18 acres as a church. Because of building constraints with coding in the city and county of Broomfield, the barn that we're in right now, this is about as big as you can get a structure built in an area like this. So we could build a different structure for like teens and kids, the silo that many of you have been hearing about for a long time. We could build something like that. But if we want a church that's bigger than that, what we're talking about is building an additional structure for Sunday mornings for adults, where on one stage a live service is happening and on another stage it's being televised, which is not awesome for anyone. And so really thinking through how much land do we need as a church? How might God be inviting us to use what we have as we move forward? And really that conversation evolved relatively quickly into looking at the western parcel, which is where the barn sits, and the eastern parcel, which is that's where the dirt parking lot and a lot of dirt and plants are right now. This work you're about to see is indebted to Gail Fleisch. And I just want to say, Gail, without you getting this ball rolling, I don't know that we'd be where we are. So I wanted to thank you. I also wanted to thank Linnea Stewart, who's led this team for the past year and a half. And I want to recognize some other folks who are integral into everything you're about to see, who've been a part of this process. The first that I wanted to call out is Amanda Ropek. And if you're like, I don't know that name, that's because she doesn't go to church here. Amanda is a part of the Broomfield Housing Alliance, and she has been at every single meeting that we've had in the last 3 years. Amanda comes with a wealth of information. The number of times she's given us counsel that has been absolutely gold. The number of dots that she's connected. She got a grant for us that allowed us to do the charrette that you'll see in just a second. Broomfield Housing Alliance has been a dear friend to us in this process, and special thanks to Amanda. Also on this team if you could build a team, this is like assembling the Avengers. There'd be types that you'd want to have. It'd be great to have an architect. It'd be great to have like an engineer. It'd be great to have a PhD in real estate. Maybe somebody who's done other RFPs in their own history doing, infrastructure processes. It'd be great to have somebody who really understands the heartbeat of Discovery. Maybe say somebody who runs our benevolence program and another person who helped build it and has been a part of it for a long time. What I'm describing is Steve Williams and Sharon Vickers and Nancy Movick and Dave Little and most recently Dr. Steve Laposa and Cody Gratney. Publicly, and as we look at the work that these folks have done, I just want to say thank you for offering your time and your talent to get us this far. And also as a church community, just to say, for such a time as this, we turned to the Lord and said, we've got a lot of land, what should we do? And this was the group of people that came together under the guidance of the elders to say, we'd like to see this project happen. This is work that is still seeking to share the gospel with dirt, and soon, hopefully, with roofs. and we're eager to share. We'll keep reiterating as we go that everything you're about to see, these are not finalized plans. These are drafts and ideas that have been curated over these last several months. So hold these pictures loosely, and there will be assured changes as we get more towards a finished product. The timeline till we see construction is still likely counted in years, not in months. It's just the nature of this work. And finally, I just want to give a heads up that this meeting time is intended to be purely informational. We know that there will be so many questions that will come as you're hearing all of this information. And so we're asking the process to work this way. As you're having questions today, it might be a great time to just have a phone or a sketch pad out, just to be grabbing every thought that comes your way. After this meeting's done, if you would like to submit those questions, we have a formal process on our website. Let me just show it to you here. On our homepage, there's a button that says Affordable Housing. If you click there, it'll take you through this whole process. Down here at the bottom, submit a proposal, documents and info, submit a question. If it's a question about the affordable housing project, that's where we will ask you to submit that question. If it's a question that's more about like, hey, I want to talk about the philosophy of church finance or something that's adjacent to affordable housing but not purely affordable housing, you can send those emails to me. And then in a month from now, on October 5th, we'll have another meeting similar to this one, but that one will be more of a panel discussion with the folks who have been on this team, taking those questions that have been submitted and walking through the answers to those and trying to flesh out a little bit more. The intent of these times is really just to acknowledge we can't see it from every angle. And so we really want to share this with Discovery, not only to be like, here's what we've been doing, we're turning in our homework, but also we'd love you to join us in this process. It is still very much dynamic, and there's a lot of things that are still happening. Okay, let me make sure I got all my notes. Yes, man, we've got a Broncos football game that we've all got to get to, so this is not going to be a 3-hour-long presentation, but we do want to make sure that we're thorough in what we've done so far. So without further ado, let me hand off to our project manager and our team leader and my friend. This is Linnea Stewart, everybody.
Thank you. I just want to also acknowledge Zach, and in terms of your leadership and your guidance for our group. If you can hear me well enough, Zach, no, I'm just kidding. I was actually recently asked to go to another church to talk about their affordable housing, and when I spoke with their pastor, it was a lot of I's in that conversation. I want to do this, I'm going to do that, my plan is to do this. And I've never heard Zach ever talk about this project in that way or in that manner. So I think that's unique and should be really recognized right here. So thank you. Cool. Please. I'm just going to back up so I can see the screen too. It's my own little cheat sheet. Thanks. Oh, yeah, that helps too. So I am someone who has been going to Discovery since 2021. So a lot of the work and efforts that have been happening before that time, I have been fairly neutral to. And I think that our group as a whole, the planning group, the way that Zach had described them, we really represent a lot of different aspects of the church. And so even in personality, like we're all different people and we have different thoughts and priorities coming to the table. So in this idea of presenting our work and our thoughts for moving forward, it has been a years-long and months-long process of really talking about ideas, priorities, what we want to do moving forward, and also reviewing it with the elder board and making sure that they are the governing group here have signed off on our thoughts and process forward. So if I can, let's see if this works. Looking at this drawing here, this represents the work that was done in the 2023 design charrette that was sponsored by the Broomfield Housing Alliance. And what you can see is a very exciting sketch of ideas that represented a lot of the thoughts that the church has been going through for years. And after that experience, there was a lot of excitement and thought around presenting this literal sketch to possible developers to see what interest they might have in this work at that time. When we presented that ideas, there was kind of some mixed reviews about it being enough information for these developers to really move forward with. And when I joined the group at that time, I also felt as a professional, this work was exciting, but it didn't provide enough quantifiable information for a developer to assess and evaluate and then sign off on joining us as a partner in that movement. So as a group, we decided to really focus on the eastern parcel. What you'll notice is this rectangular shape actually shows two parcels. There's a western parcel, which the church, I don't know if this mouse shows it, nope, the church building is located on. And then there's the eastern parcel, which when you walk outside, it looks pretty flat and empty. That's the parcel that we are focusing on today. So that's the area that's recognized in the red square. So when we move forward, and I might have missed something, so I might go back. We spent some time really understanding how the ideas that were exciting and that were part of that workshop, how those would actually quantifiably be kind of used and formatted in a plan for the eastern lot. And so we did a series of studies for a feasibility study just to see what could happen on this site. We really understood the areas and the parameters that you could build within or not build within, how certain roads and parking could be established in this area of the lot, where buildings could maybe be located, how green spaces could be utilized, where stormwater treatment would be proposed. This is not a design, this is more of a test fit. So what you see here will most likely change and evolve. I might say that repeatedly over and over. This may change and evolve, most likely it will. So don't get too stuck on what it looks like, but it was an interesting exercise that allowed developers, when we presented it to a handful this winter, to really latch onto and say, okay, this seems like there's some excitement, there's some opportunity here to develop something in a feasible manner, and we're excited to see what you guys do next. So, I'm just gonna, whoa, that text is small.
Oh.
Why, I'm gonna read this. Why should Discovery Church develop a request for a proposal or an RFP? We had that question internally as well, because when we presented some of these previous ideas on the last pages to a handful of developers this winter, you know, some of us were excited about one group, some of us were excited about another group, but we ended up landing on moving forward in this process, which is a much longer process of developing a request for a proposal for these reasons. The RFP will broaden opportunities for more developers to participate. Developing the RFP allows time for the planning committee to outline and clarify and confirm our goals and initiatives internally as a unified group. The RFP will allow the planning committee to better understand potential feasibility, financing, and scheduling strategies for multiple developers through side-by-side comparisons in the future. And the RFP is a record document that can be shared to the church and the larger community as an established, unified basis of understanding of our goals for the project at this particular time. So, yes, things will change and evolve, but it holds kind of a milestone understanding of where our group and where the church is at, which we can always go back on and say, well, where were we in 2025?
And I think if you're new to this lingo of like, I think I'm getting a picture of what an RFP is, I think to grossly oversimplify, this is our eHarmony profile, and we are looking for a partner. And so this is basically just saying, here's what we'd like to do, here's what I'm looking for, here's who we are. Who matches this? who out there in the wide world would see plans, desires like this and say, I'd love to help you do that, I'd love to be your partner. So that's where, if you're like, I'm understanding a bit, hopefully that oversimplifies it a bit.
Thank you. Can I move through? Is that working? Other side, there we go.
There.
Okay. Zoom out, there we go, zoom in.
And all of this information, too, that now you're about to see, most of it anyway, is on the website. So if you want to, on your phone, follow along, you can pull up the homepage, click Affordable Housing, and you can click to view the RFP, and that's what you're looking at here.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to go through the areas that have been circled in red, just to highlight some points that may be more interesting than other parts of the proposal or the request for a proposal. Just so you know, this process of writing this document took us about 3 months to review, write, redraft, review again, redraft, review again. We did it about 3 times, really integrating the ideas of everybody in that group to something that we believe is a strong statement and a clear path of looking for a developer. So in the statement of purpose, this is, I can't.
You want me to zoom in?
Yeah, if you can help me zoom in.
I got you.
The statement of purpose, just so I can read it. There we go. So this statement of purpose has been kind of our guiding light for the past 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, where we're saying Discovery Church seeks to nurture an intergenerational community that fosters our core principles of hope, growth, beauty, and connectivity to those who are most in need through thoughtful and intentional design of multi-purposeful facilities and programs. I would highlight the word intergenerational in this comment. This is a word that for us is, at least in the planning group, really represents who we think Discovery Church is trying to reach and support in this development. That word really does not want to get lost in the process of moving forward, and it's a word that it actually offers a lot of complexity to developers as they look at this RFP and decide whether or not they want to participate, because we're offering the challenge of saying we want this lot to not just be serving one community, we want it to be serving communities that will offer support to each other. You'll see some of these complexities or challenges as we look forward in the document. So in the table of contents, I won't go through all of them, but this is really kind of the way in which it's organized. You can go through it, but it offers kind of the general format of the RFP itself. And then going up to these deadlines, these are milestones that we are looking to reach. The general goal is to review incoming questions and clarifications and provide clarifications, review incoming proposals at a certain date, narrow them down to a short list, and then invite that short list of developers into interviews in November and December. If we feel like we need to meet with more developers or meet with another developer a second time, we have carved out January as a time to also follow up, to thoughtfully consider this next step. Our hope is that we notify a developer sometime in January or February to move forward. When that developer is selected, it does not mean that that land automatically goes to them. It will be several months, maybe even years, before that land is even shifted in one way or in any way to somebody else or another group or organization. What will happen is an agreement, a memorandum of understanding will be signed by the church and this future group to move forward together in that dating period. So if that dating period does not feel comfortable after a few months, we have every right to start over or to try again. So my hope is that helps and gives some level of comfort to people who are, maybe anxious about the future here.
Afraid of commitment.
Afraid of commitment. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so moving into the next
Can we zoom
pages.
in again?
Thank you so much.
Oh, maybe.
Okay, so this introduction here, I've highlighted because it's starting to narrow in on the community groups that our group has focused on and really landed on in the past year and a half. From our experience, from our year and a half discussion of community groups, this list was a lot longer. I think there were like different, like refugees or people that, were, I can't think of all the community groups,
Yeah.
but there are so many
A lot of
community groups that we
demographics.
all wanted to help. We narrowed this down to 3 groups: seniors, low-income households, and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I can highlight some of the discussions that we had in our softer conversations with some developers this winter. The senior group seems to be the most, the easier group to develop housing for, mainly because everybody, has a grandparent or an elderly person that they're connected to. It seems like it would be a community group that the neighbors would be more attuned to support. Low-income housing here, there is a broad range of what that means, and we will still dive into that and really understand what range of low-income housing would be the group that would be focused on moving forward. And individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, this housing has challenges just in terms of kind of liability, how would it be managed in the future. So this is a more challenging program to develop with developers. But it was one of the key community groups that almost everybody in the group had a personal connection to, interestingly enough, and I think that is representative of our community as a whole, which is a good reflection of who our church is or what our church is. So we'll keep you posted on how that develops, but we did narrow it down to 3 groups.
And I think it's fair to say, as we're anticipating how some of these conversations will go with potential developers, that some may come in and say, well, we can do IDD and we can do affordable, but we don't do seniors. And so that is our desire. We'd love to be serving all 3 of those groups. But just to be clear for us, in these conversations, that's how they go, as it becomes a lot of bartering and who's the best partner and the best fit for what we want to do moving ahead and what we think God's inviting us to do as we move ahead. So.
And partners or partner. We've met with some other churches and organizations that have worked with several developers on the same lot to do different types of housing. So there's a lot of conversations that can happen. So this second part here, I zoomed out, but basically I just want to highlight a couple kind of short-term like acronyms that I think are going to be following us in the process.
Do you want it zoomed out again?
Yeah, I'll zoom it out. So CCOB, or LITEC, and there's one more, but it's CHAFA.
Yep.
So these terms, if you're not in kind of the affordable housing world, these will seem kind of new. They will be new to you. But basically, these are state or federal organizations or entities that will have a good amount of influence in the decisions that are going to be made about how to develop this land, when it can be developed. There will be applications for funding that will be integral to the further development of any work on that parcel. So as we continue to share more in the future, like in the years ahead, if you have questions about why a decision was made that didn't seem to certainly maybe align perfectly with something, there may be some reasons behind that in terms of certain federal or state funding that is tied to that, or it may align perfectly. We don't know. These are things that we're learning on the way. And then the last part I wanted to highlight,
Gotcha.
thank you so much,
Yeah.
is the financing. This particular, as you notice, there's a lot of words in this proposal, but this particular section, our group really mulled over how to write this in a manner that everybody was in agreement to in publishing this. Now there's some questions that are coming in that we'll have to maybe make more conversation around, but I'm going to take the time to read this one. For the financing, Discovery has an existing loan with the Solomon Foundation, TSF, covering Lot 64 and land and improvements on the adjoining western parcel. Preliminary discussions with TSF require a resolution of debt, a mortgage, on the eastern parcel for this project to proceed. An appraisal by a qualified and experienced church appraiser segregating market value estimates separately for the west and east parcels will provide a foundation to negotiate Lot 64's loan payoff for TSF. And I can guarantee that we have already been receiving questions that are very much focused on what does this actually mean for us. And I can probably say that in our group, there's a range of opinions about what that means for us. We will keep you posted on how that concludes. But at the end of the day, there is a mortgage. It needs to be paid off in some manner, and we need to take that seriously. Okay. And the last portion is the evaluation criteria. Thank you. Yeah. And again, we also, we had a very lively debate about how to prioritize this different criteria. So it will be evaluated by project experience, project organization, personnel experience and qualifications, project approach and mission-driven alignment, firm's financial strength, fee and financial strategy proposal. And they all have different points kind of associated to them. Hopefully they add up to 100, and we will move forward from that. And then there's the dates, and kind of there's an appendix which anybody can access, which includes a lot of the key historical information that we feel would be helpful for a developer to understand our intentions and our goals moving forward. Is that it? Oh, and the last photo here. It's a little blurry.
Yeah, well, and I think one thing too, as we're looking ahead on why are we doing this? For sure, because we want to partner with Broomfield City and County. And so what's the need of our local community? That's enough. But the fact that their need aligns with something like Scripture. Is not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of the wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and to bring the homeless poor into your house? This is why we're doing this. It's for sure to love our local community, but this is the gospel. This is justice in action, and that matters to us. And so do we need the Eastern Parcel to do more discovery, church-specific things, or is this a way that we go, we're giving this land? We're offering it as a way to see the gospel move forward, so that anybody who's driving by on the street, as they see it and hear the story of it, they just go, man, that's right. That's a good and right thing. So I think it's safe to say that if you're on your phone and you're zooming in on some of the pictures or some of the things in the RFP, if you're like, I can't really tell, where's senior housing, where's adults with developmental disabilities, you'll see an apiary on that drawing if you zoom in real close. There's some really cool things in there. Again, if you have questions, you can send those in through the process. If there are questions that are less about affordable housing and more about just how's Discovery approaching this, you can send those to me. Anything else that you wanted to grab? I think any note I was taking as we got into it, I think we've covered it. So again, just to reiterate one more time, we have this meeting today, and then on October 5th, we'll have the panel discussion to just be answering those questions. That will not be a live question and answer session. That will be taking the questions that have been sent in, both from people at Discovery and from developers, and giving those answers. There's just a high level of clarity and transparency about the things that we're concerned about and excited about. So
I would say it's one interesting detail here. We're trying to group any of the church-related questions incoming with any proposed or any incoming questions from the developers, and we do have a deadline for the developers, September 15th, because we're going to be meeting as a group on the 17th to answer them all. If you're in the church and you have a question after September 15th, you can keep asking us questions. It would just might not be as official, in this process, but no deadline for you guys.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay, great. Use that submit a question button. If there's something you're like, I cannot leave here and I can't ask a good question unless I can get at least a preliminary question asked. You can ask, am I throwing you under the bus to say you can ask either one of us? We reserve the right to say, hey, yeah, you're good as is. Just submit the question through the website. But if it's something that feels like, oh, that would be helpful to know right now, we'd be more than happy to speak to that. But this is the direction that we're hoping to lean towards. Again, none of these are like rock solid plans. These are drafts of ideas that we're now looking for somebody who can help us make them better and then actually get this work done. So submit your questions. I'd love to just close this in prayer. We're going to need a lot more of that in the coming months and years with this project. So let's pray. God, thanks for these words in Isaiah that remind us that the mission of your church is not just to make sure people hold the right ideas, but that it's intensely practical, and that things like bread and things like roofs and things like injustice, they really matter to you. And so to that end, we pray right now, as there are developers out there in the wide world that are looking at this project, that you would give them divine creativity to offer us things we haven't even thought of. And we ask for our elders, as they continue to oversee this process, you would continue to give them wisdom and discernment. And we ask for our land use team. Man, thanks for the talent that you've put there. Help that team continue to offer their talent to you in a way that is humble and that is waiting on your direction on things, not on the most strategic idea. And let us bring the fullness of ourselves. And we need a partner. We need somebody to do this. So help us, just guide us to them. And we want to see this dirt worship you better. It's in your name that we pray. Amen. All right, y'all. Thanks for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Go Broncos. We'll see you.